Okay, so what we're going to do is a project called Japanese Notan. So if I went to Google, if you're just curious about what it is, and Japanese, spell it right, that would be good. What it is a very contrasty image. It's usually made out of one piece of paper, and basically what it is you cut from a square and you flip the page or flip the piece and you glue it onto the negative space flipped. So we're going to create this project, but we're going to use Pixlr to do this. You can also, if you feel the urge to do this, you can try it in Photoshop as well. It'll be easier for you, but we're going to do this simple exercise in Pixlr, so it'll be a nice introduction. We're going to go to Pixlr Editor, like you saw in the first video, and end up with create a new image. Okay, so this image, there's no way you can put inches in as far as size goes. It's all based on pixels. So if I wanted something 12 inches by 12 inches, 300 pixels per inch, if you do the math, you're going to end up with 3,600 pixels across and 36 pixels as far as your height goes. We're going to have a nice big square. So 3,600, 3,600, and then say OK. And you're going to end up with a white page in front of you. Now, to make it bigger and smaller, you have the ability to hit the Command button and the minus. Command plus makes it bigger. You can also go to View, and you can zoom in and out like that. Okay? So I'm going to make it somewhat large, because what we're going to do is we're also going to make another square inside of it. We're going to make another layer. So in order to do this, we're going to hit the New Layer button. This time it's on the bottom right. And now we have a new layer. We're going to use the Marquee tool and make sure it's in a rectangular form, not the circle. And I'm going to go to No Restriction. I'm going to change this constraint to Aspect Ratio. I want it to stay a square, so the width and height are going to be 1 by 1. So no matter how I drag this, it's always going to end up as a square. Now I want this to be a certain size. So in order to dictate what the size is, I have to change some attributes here. So I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to go to Navigator. So I already deleted this or got rid of it. I'm going to put it back. So Navigator is back. Here, this will dictate the size of my square. Now, in order to get rid of the marching ants, I can hit, instead of hitting the escape button, hit Command D. That will deselect what you have. So the idea is you're going to make this square a certain size. Now, if you look at your Navigator, you're going to see that there's XY coordinates, and then there's also a width and a height. So let me just go over here and circle this. These are the numbers you're looking for. So the numbers I would like you guys to find is about 1,000. Okay? 1,000, 1,000. If you do 1,200, 1,200, that's fine. Okay? Because I want it to be about 1/4 of the width. So I would like it to be, let's take it too long. Okay, so this video is going to go into a project, and the project I'd like to call it Japanese Notan, N-O-T-A-N. So if you want to see what we're going to be doing, you could have just Googled Japanese Notan, and you can see that it looks like a black and white image, very contrasty. Basically, it starts off with a square. Let me look at this simple one. It starts off with a square piece of paper, and you cut out a piece of paper in the shape that you want, and then you take that piece and you flip it into the negative space. And then if you wanted to take pieces from the negative space, cut pieces out, and flip them again and back into the positive space, you can do that. So it makes a pretty neat image. So we're going to be making this digitally. So we're going to go back to Pixlr, and you're going to create a new image. Now there's going to be some changes, some things that we can't do in here that we can do in Photoshop. For example, you can't dictate the size of the image by inches, but we're going to set it up in pixels. So if I want a 12-inch by 12-inch image, and it's 300 pixels per inch, that means that the width is going to be 3,600 pixels by 3,600 pixels. So in the width, put the number 3,600. For the height, put 3,600. You don't have to check transparent. I would prefer you not to. And you hit OK. Now there's another thing real quick that I want you to adjust. And if I want you to notice that I have the Navigator window open. Before, in the earlier video, I got rid of it to allow for the layers window to be bigger. You can manipulate these windows and you can slide them around in this space. We need the Navigator. So to get it back, you can go to View, and then here's the windows right here. We still don't need history, but we need Navigator, and I'm going to explain why. Because what we're going to do is we're going to make a new layer. So the New Layer button is down on the bottom of your Layers window. So you hit New Layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a square, and the square is going to be in the center of the picture. So we are going to use the Marquee tool and make sure that it's the rectangular Marquee tool. Aspect ratio, I'd like you to, instead of no restriction, set it up to aspect ratio 1 by 1. You don't have to put pixels or anything. This just dictates when this is 1 and this is 1. It's just telling the computer to make sure it stays a square. Now, as you're working here and you're dragging a square, check out the W and the H here. First of all, the coordinates, as I move this around, it's setting up coordinates. I'm not really that concerned with the coordinates right now because we can move them around. But what I'm going to be concerned with is when we start to make a rectangle, well, a square, we want to make sure the width and the height is the proper number. So I'm going to set this up. I'm going to hit Command minus, and Command minus allows me to see the whole square. Just made it smaller. I'm going to start on the top left, and I'm going to drag a rectangle. Now I'm looking at the W and the H in the Navigator window from before. The number I'm looking for is 1200 for width and 1200 for height. If I'm a little off, that's completely fine, but I think I just got it. 1200 by 1200. Don't worry about the X and the Y coordinates. So it's just going to hold in place. So this is where I'm looking. It's okay if it's 1181. If I wanted to change it, instead of hitting the escape button to get rid of that selection, the marching ants, I can hit Command the letter D, like dog, and it deselects it. So I can try this again if I really want it to be 1200. Okay. Oh, jumped back to 1181. So now I'm going to put this in the middle before I dump the square in. Then I'm going to use the paint bucket tool. So you can find the paint bucket. Down below here is your main color. You can double click on it. And if you remember, our 6 digits are 6 zeros there for the black. And we're going to dump it in. So you want to make sure you're on layer 1. So you have a white background layer, and then you have a little black square for layer 1. I hit Command D to get rid of the ants. It's at this point you can use the Move tool if you want to center this more. You don't have to be absolutely perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in to my area. I'm going to be using the Lasso tool. There are 2 Lasso tools, so if you remember, the tool options are on top now. There is a freehand lasso tool, and then there's the polygonal lasso tool. I'm going to start off with the freehand lasso tool. I'm going to start off with one corner, and I'm going to go all the way down to the other corner. But before I go down all the way there, I am going to make a shape. This is a random shape. Some of you guys might want to make shapes of trees and flowers and hands and whatever, but I just made kind of a random shape. And I'm going to connect it to make a polygon. Doesn't really matter what happens in this negative space as long as it comes back out and around to here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, I'm going to cut this piece. So to do this, I go up to Image, I go up to Edit, and you can see here, Cut. And it's Control X is the shortcut. If you're on your Chromebook, Control is the button. If you're on your Mac, Command is the button. So I'm going to hit Control X. So it cut it away, but now I want to paste it. So I go back to Edit and Paste, and that's Control, or in our case, Command V. So you can see it put it back. It put it right in the center of the picture, so I'm going to move it out. So there's my piece. Now what I want to do is I want to flip this. So I'm going to be looking for the flip horizontally. You go back to Edit, you go back to Image this time, and it says Flip Canvas. I want to do horizontally. Okay, well, I'm kind of glad I did this in the video. I'm not going to change it. I'm going to undo, and I'm going to do this again. Let's try that again. So I don't want to do the canvas, I want to do the layer. So instead of image, I go to layer, and it's flip layer horizontally. Sorry about that. Okay. And I'm going to move it in place over here. So that's why I made the rectangle, or the square in our case, smaller. So I had some room to move it to the negative space. So now I'm going to do the same thing in another spot. I go back to layer 1. Back to layer 1 is the main spot. This time I'm going to go with the Lasso Tool, but I'm going to go with the polygonal Lasso Tool. And what it does is it makes more of a shape, of course, with jagged edges. So I'm going to try my best to get it to that corner. So I make a chunk here. I am going to, this time I'm not going to use these up here. I'm going to go to Command X is cutting it, and Command V is pasting it. You can see it put it in the center, so it's over here. Then I go up to Layer. This time I'm going to flip it vertically, up and down. There we go. And then you put it in place. So you can do this to the many sides. You don't want to slide this over here. It should be kind of going straight up like this, so you can see the pieces fitting. So I can do the same thing to this side, I can do the same thing to this side, but if I wanted to also, I can go to the proper layer. Let's say I want to work on this one. This is layer 2. I can come over here and take a chunk out of this piece, Command X, Command V. And again, those pieces end up in the middle. So there's the piece. And I'm going to Layer, rotate, flip layer horizontally. And if you make a mistake, Command Z will undo. So you can see you can go back and forth. I can cut out a chunk here and flip it over there. You want to keep an eye on what is in this layer. If you want to make it invisible and have it flash a little bit, you can check this on and off. It's not an eyeball anymore, it's just a check. Now to save this, you can go to File, Save. And you don't want to save it as a JPEG. You want to save it where it has some layers. So we're going to save it as a layered pixel or image. Okay? So PXD. You can name it, and it's going to give you an opportunity to save it. It's going to give you an opportunity to save it in a specific place. Okay, so you get this open, so you can go to your desktop. I don't have a graphic design folder in this. Well, it's in here, but let's see. So you find your graphic design folder. You can make a new folder by hitting here, and you can call this Notan if you want. And you can save it in here. Okay. And that is it. So you're going to keep working on this, and I'll see what your process, how you made out when I come in on Wednesday. So good luck with everything.